Welcome back, everyone. We're going to jump back into some team previews. We're moving to the AFC South today, so we're going to get those four previews up for you within the week. We're going to start with the Houston Texans. Head coach Gary Kubiak is in his 8th season with the team. Last season, he had his best record, 12-4, but they lost the New England Patriots in the playoffs. All losses to playoff teams, so they were 3-4 versus playoff teams last year. So the Texans are a classic team that just beat up on the teams they're supposed to beat up on. We'll look at their offense. Matt Schaub enters his 7th season as a Texans starter. He's been good, but can he elevate his game to the next level that's required to win a Super Bowl? What I mean by that is, look at Joe Flacco last year. You could say he's a good quarterback, but in the playoffs, he was an excellent quarterback. He was the best quarterback in the playoffs. That's the type of play they need from Matt Schaub. They need the guy who's not going to make mistakes, like Joe Flacco, not throw an interception and win the ball games that they need. Well, actually, let's add one more part about Matt Schaub. He finished extremely poorly. You have to wonder if he was hurt at the end of last season, but he did not. His arm was not good at the end of last season, and it cost them the playoffs. Let's look at their wide receiver, a future Hall of Famer, maybe the best wide receiver of the past decade, Andre Johnson. He's still a top 10 wide receiver in the NFL. He can still rack up 1,500 yards. I don't know if he can get that now. It's amazing to think he did last year. But the question is, who's number 2? Who has ever been the number 2 for the Houston Texans since he's been there? They haven't ever had a number 2 receiver. And that's just sickening if you're a Texans fan. Right? They spent their first round pick on what they hope is the first round number 2 receiver at least. And that's DeAndre Hopkins out of Clemson. He was excellent in the absence of Sammy Watkins last year when people thought he would be the number 1 target and lead that explosive Clemson team. So I like him to win the job opposite Johnson. That's not great pronunciation. But there's also an interesting player, Devere Posey, that I think could sneak in there and get some snaps. The offensive line is excellent. Dwayne Brown is the best pass blocking left tackle in all of football. He rarely gives up a sack or takes a penalty. I can't remember if this stat still holds up, but I believe he went like a season and a half, maybe it was 26 games worth, where he did not give up a sack or a penalty. That is unbelievable. There are some left tackles who take 3 penalties a game. It's ridiculous to think that he didn't do that for 20 plus games. We move to left guard where Wade Smith completes the left side. That's a very good left side, and that's one of the main reasons Adrian Foster is getting the type of numbers he gets. We move to center. Chris Myers is getting up there in age, but he's still a reliable Pro Bowl center. We move to the right side where you have young, inexperienced players competing for the starting jobs. They got 4 guys competing in camp right now. They've got a combined 14 starts. So that's what the weak point of the line is going to be. That's where you're going to see teams attacking with their pass rush, sending their best run stuff. They're going to send their best pass rushers on. We move to tight end, where Owen Daniels is productive when he doesn't have a torn ACL, and he's torn his ACL a bunch. So he's always a question mark. They've got to find that number 2. Now James Casey's an eagle. We move to fullback. Greg Jones is on the decline, but still a very good blocking fullback. He doesn't have the same ability to get the short yards, but they don't need the short yards because they've got Arian Foster, who's still a elite running back, though he seems to be on the decline with all these hamstring injuries. Luckily for Texans fans, they've got a very good number 2 in Ben Tate, and if Foster goes down, Texan fans have very little to worry about. Tate is more than capable. We move to defense, where the defending, reigning defensive player of the year is J.J. Watt, the converted tight end and Wisconsin Badger, is the best 3-4 in football, and will continue to get to the passer, knock down passes. No player on defense has a bigger impact on a game than J.J. Watt. We look across from Antonio Smith. Has yet to show his age. We have to wonder, will he have a sharp decline and just fall off the map? He is suspended for week 1 after a helmet swinging event where he slammed his helmet into someone. But the big question on the D-line, Earl Mitchell, new starter at nose tackle. Can he hold up the blockers? What will that mean for Watson Smith? We move to middle linebacker, where Brian Cushing, back after tearing his ACL on a dirty-looking block last season. The defense was noticeably worse once Cushing left. Cushing is a tackling machine, a monster, a potential PED abuser again. He has to return to his form, or they have big problems in the middle, because next to him is Joe Mays, who, if the Denver Broncos let go of him and is now a starter, that doesn't say much about Joe Mays. We look at the outside pass rushers, where could be an area of question, because they have Brooks, Reed, and Whitney Merciless, both picked in the first 2 rounds of the draft in recent years, but you still have to replace the production lost over the years, the guys you let go. Now they have 2 of the better corners in the NFL. Jonathan Joseph, signed from the Bengals, has been excellent, and when he was out of the lineup, you noticed the difference, because when he got back in the lineup, he was a major factor shutting down number 1 receivers. Kareem Jackson, still haunted by a terrible rookie season when he was torched, but he is becoming a top corner in the NFL, and really the Texans have 2 number 1 corners on their roster. It's tough to beat them by the pass. But safety is an issue for this team, so it could be a weak up the middle situation for the Texans, strong on the outside. As Daniel Manning is the incumbent starting again for the Texans, a good, not great option. Look, he's never going to be a Pro Bowler, strong safety. And then you have a camp battle for free safety. CeeLo Keo versus DJ Swearinger. I expect the 2nd round pick Swearinger to win the job. And Swearinger is unfortunately in the news recently for all the wrong reasons. His low hit on Dustin Keller dislocated Keller's knee, tore his ACL, tore his PCL, tore his MCL in disgusting injury, and an unfortunate problem with the NFL rule changes. We move to the special teams, where kicker Neil Rakers was replaced by 2012 5th round pick by the Texans, Randy Bullock. He's going to put up the numbers, but you really have to wait and see what you're going to get from a kicker who's very inexperienced. And they signed punter Shane Lecker from the Raiders. The Raiders let him go because they could not afford his salary, and his play had declined slightly, but he's still an elite punter, and if punters got in the Hall of Fame, he would be in the Hall of Fame. Maybe one day former Raider Ray Guy will get in the Hall of Fame like he deserves to be. We look at returners. They got former Michigan State Spartan Keyshawn Martin returning. He gives them a good option back there who can get... He may not be a threat to go every time he touches the ball, but he can get you consistent yards, which is, in some cases, just as good. And by that I mean it's better that he's getting you yards versus taking fair catches and just getting you average yards. He's getting you 12 on a punt return, 26 on a kick return, versus a lot of other guys where it's 5 and 20. The projected record for the Texans, I'm saying 10 and 6. They will win the division again, and unfortunately for Texan fans, not a long playoff run. It's going to be over quite quickly. Sorry, that's how your season goes.